Hi. I thought I'd just talk today a little bit about COVID-19 and just this really weird season that we find ourselves in at the moment, and how we can look after ourselves as well as possible and look after each other as well as possible and keep ourselves as well as possible during this odd time that we're in. Um, I've just been for a run through the local park. I suppose a jog would be more descriptive than a run. I don't go very fast, but there were loads of people in the park today, which was really nice to see. And because I don't run that fast, I listen to what people are saying, and I noticed that nearly everybody that I went past was talking about health things. People mentioning hospitals and COVID and lockdown and just these health things that are really at the forefront of people's minds at the moment. And you can sort of feel it. I don't know about you, but I can just feel the tension for people. It's gone on for so long, hasn't it? Now, months and months and months, and things could get worse before they get better. And I think one of the really interesting things with this virus is that it's so unpredictable. There's been all the information about a vaccine now, but again, it's not certain how that's going to work or when it's going to be available and who will be eligible for it and how long it will give immunity for. Lots of questions still, nothing certain, and it becomes quite difficult to know what to do and to know how to live and to not get anxious and fearful and worry about our health and what's going to happen to us in these sort of times. And I think it's helpful to acknowledge that, isn't it? That it's a really difficult time that we're living in, but it's also interesting that it highlights for us that suddenly there's this illness around that feels out of control. It's across the world, isn't it? It's no respecter of people and their backgrounds, and it's odd, it's unpredictable, and it has features about it that we've not come across before. So it shakes everybody up. It just shakes our foundations of trust and feeling safe. So I was just thinking a little bit about what can we do to do the best we can in the situation that we're in at the moment for our well-being. I think one thing is looking after ourselves physically, so getting out when you can. We're allowed to go out to exercise, aren't we? So actually, for me, just going for a jog through the park or taking the dog for a walk, even just walking to the local shops and back, you get a bit of a chat with neighbours. What can you do? What can you do if it's just walking up and down the road, if it's getting to the local park, if it's walking briskly, going for a run, getting out into local countryside if you can. Whatever it is, just getting outside and doing some exercise is, I think, really helpful. And there's a social aspect to that, which is also helpful. So actually getting to see other people, seeing our neighbours, having a bit of a chat, seeing how they're doing, is a really good thing to do. Notice nature when you're out. Notice what the leaves are doing, the beautiful colours at the minute, and yeah, I think that's a really positive thing to do. Looking after ourselves in terms of what we eat, I've been more interested in cooking from scratch and thinking about recipes and taking some time to do that, something that I wouldn't normally do, and that's actually been quite interesting and quite good for me, and thinking about what goes into food. And yeah, that's a really good thing to do as well, focusing on something different. We need to look after ourselves and other people emotionally as well, don't we, and socially, and looking after our mental health is really important. And I think one of the key things in that is what we think about. I'm very aware how the media shifts from one big story to another. You know, it's Brexit, and then it's COVID, and then it's American elections, and then it's back to COVID, and then it's back to infighting in the politicians, and it's always magnified, isn't it? And it's always made big, and as if it's a disaster coming. It feels as if a lot of the media comes from the point of view of something terrible is about to happen to us, rather than encouraging good news. So we have to remember that and be careful about what we read and what we listen to, what we watch. and bring some things into our lives that are positive, good news stories, if you like. Seek out things that are stories of people overcoming, or where people have done really amazing things in their communities. And maybe Remembrance Days helped a little bit with that, because it gets us to focus on things outside of ourselves. And I think that's just really important as well. And if we think about even coronavirus, you know, most people don't get it. If 1 in 80 people is getting it, well, 79 people are not getting it. And of the ones that get it, a lot of them don't have symptoms. And of the ones that do have symptoms, most of them are mild. And of the ones that are not mild, most of them don't go into hospital. And of those that go into hospital, most recover. And yet we look at the number of deaths and the number of people who've got long-term symptoms, and that's what makes the news. And so it feels like, you know, it's inevitable, isn't it, that we're going to get it and we're going to be seriously ill, but it isn't. It's the opposite way around. So thinking and just analysing what we're reading and focusing on and listening to, and bring the opposite way of looking at things is really important. And we can do that for each other as well, just encouraging our neighbours, and encouraging our friends, and choosing to have a bit of a chat with people who are lonely, and noticing, you know, there's a lady up the road from us who sits in her porch, and just, you know, choosing to make contact and spend a little bit of time, and that can really make the difference for that person in that day, and bring a bit of perspective. And that's all good for our well-being. I think the final thing that I'd want to say is that I read something really interesting that said that so many people have been thinking about spiritual things as well. I think when things feel uncertain and out of our control, we realise how small we are, don't we? And that actually we think we can solve everything with science and human initiative, and this sort of brings into focus that we can't, and there are so many things that we don't know. That's one of the situations where we can think we know everything, but actually, you know, we know very little. It's similar in medicine. The more years that I've worked, the more I realise how little I know. And I think this has brought into focus for people that we know little, and a lot of things are uncertain in our lives here on earth. And millions of people have been tuning into some of the online church stuff that's there, some of the services and talks, and something called Alpha, that's lots of questions about Christianity and what it is. That's really good. Lots of people have been doing that, and people finding comfort and truth and a foundation outside of themselves that actually is really helpful for well-being. And I know for myself that's been one of the key things that has helped me through this whole period of time, is having my foundation, having my life built on God, who's so much bigger than I am, and knows everything, and can be trusted, and is good, and loves me. And so I choose to believe and trust, and therefore my life here isn't everything. And so suddenly everything comes into a different kind of focus. It's like looking through a lens a different way. So I'd really encourage you, it's really, really good to think about spiritual things, especially here in the West, where we don't, you know, spiritual things are not thought to be existent, or we poo-poo it, or we put all our trust in the science, whereas in lots of parts of the world, the spiritual world is acknowledged as real. And yeah, and that brings a different foundation for people. So I'd really encourage you to think about that as well. And we do know that actually, if we're emotionally well, and we're looking after what we eat, and we're physically healthy, and we're guarding what we think about, and chucking out the thoughts that are not good, and we're interacting socially, we're part of a community, we have a spiritual foundation, we know from research that those things actually give us a much stronger foundation for health. You know, our immune systems function better, and put us in a much better place for if we do catch something. So I think today I'd just encourage you, in all the stuff that's going on, just to look at what you can do something about, what you can control, what you can look at, what you can change, rather than what you can't. And that can make a really big difference, just day by day by day, for you and the people around.